It's now been 2 years since Royal Enfield debuted its new gen J series platform of 350cc motorcycles, and the company tells us that it's already sold 500,000 motorcycles since. So clearly customers are accepting these J platform bikes with open arms. But the new age Classic 350 and the Meteor 350 are still very much Royal Enfield sort of motorcycles. And that's exactly where the new Hunter 350 comes in, because the company is now trying to appeal to a broader range of customers with this bike. The whole idea here is to make this bike more accessible, whether that's for non-RE fans or just newer riders in general. Effectively, this is a smaller, lighter, easier and more contemporary bike than we're used to seeing from Royal Enfield. So here are the figures that matter when we talk about ease and accessibility. This bike has an 800mm seat height and it's nice and narrow near the fuel tank, so short riders will definitely like that. But I'm 6'1" and I also fit very comfortably on this motorcycle. Then there's the weight. At 181 kilos, the Hunter is 14 kilos lighter than the Classic 350. But when you actually ride this bike, it feels even lighter than that. That's because the Hunter has some pretty significant changes going on with the chassis. This is the first modern RE with 17-inch wheels at both ends, and that alone brings in a lot more agility. In addition, the wheelbase is 20mm shorter than the Classic and 30mm less than the Meteor. The steering rake angle is now sharpened to 25 degrees, which is quite aggressive for a 350cc Royal Enfield. In fact, the chassis itself is different, with a slightly smaller rear section, a new subframe, and it doesn't have the heavy metal footpeg cradle underneath that usually holds the forward set pegs that you get on the Classic and Meteor. The result is a motorcycle that rides and handles almost like a typical 250cc naked. Now it is a little strange at first to feel that slow revving thumper of an engine matched with such a light and agile chassis, but it's something you quickly get used to and then start to enjoy. We rode through all sorts of Bangkok roads, ranging from jammed rush hour traffic to beautifully fast and open highways, and even through some late night street markets. The company even let us have a few laps around a big go-kart track where the bike was a whole lot of fun. Now the Hunter has 1 degree more of cornering clearance at each side compared to the Meteor, which doesn't sound like much, but it actually makes a noticeable difference. Although you still don't have to try too hard before the footpeg starts scraping. For most real-world situations though, there's plenty of lean angle available. This bike is also willing to change direction much faster and with considerably less effort than any modern-day RE, and that makes it good fun, whether you're fooling around on a go-kart track or just navigating through traffic. As for the brakes, the Hunter has a new front master cylinder which gives it a little more feel and progression, but the rest of the setup is the same as the Classic and the Meteor, and like its siblings, these brakes need a strong pull at the lever for urgent stops. The top Hunter Metro variant that we're riding has dual-channel ABS as standard. Now, Thailand has some beautifully smooth roads that sort of put ours to shame, so we'll have to ride the Hunter back home to see how it deals with potholes and broken roads and the usual sort of stuff we deal with. But the thing to consider is that the Hunter has a slightly firmer setup than either the Classic or the Meteor, especially at the rear. From what I could tell, this bike will feel a little more firm than its siblings, but I don't think it'll get to the point of being too much. Still, that'll have to wait until we can ride this bike on bad roads. It's also a little down on ground clearance compared to the Classic 350, but I don't think that the 150mm figure should be a serious problem, especially considering the firm rear shocks and the shorter wheelbase. As for the riding position, it's comfortable and it reminds me a little of the Interceptor 650 because the footpegs are now underneath you rather than in front. Like the Interceptor, there's also a slight stretch forward towards the handlebar and the footpegs are slightly rear set. It is comfortable, but it's also a much more connected riding position than the other 350s, and that will appeal to many people. Overall, the Hunter chassis is nimble and playful, but I wouldn't go so far as to call this a sporty motorcycle. Fun, yes, but not sporty. And the primary reason behind that is this engine, which is pretty much almost exactly the same as what you'll get in the Classic and the Meteor. While the power and torque figures are exactly the same, RE says that they have mapped this engine slightly differently. Now they've already managed to make the Classic and the Meteor engine feel a little different to each other, and the same applies to the Hunter. This motor feels a little more responsive, and the sound from the shorter exhaust is a little more raspy. Nevertheless, this is still a very similar riding experience, and the company says that you can expect similar performance and fuel efficiency, which is a claimed 36.2 kpl. On the highway, the Hunter feels wonderful at about 80 kph, and it can hold 100 without stress. Anything above that comes quite slowly, but even at its top speed of about 120, this engine feels smooth enough and has no significant vibration. Now, that sort of performance is nothing special, and if you care about 0 to 100 times or top speeds, you should look elsewhere. But if you like riding at a more calm and gentle pace, this is one of the most characterful and enjoyable engines that you will find on any Indian motorcycle. Just like the Classic and the Meteor, it's all about the low end and the mid-range and enjoying that strong torque along with a gentle beat that can be felt from the engine. I really have been enjoying commuting on our long-term Classic 350, and this lighter feeling Hunter should be even more enjoyable. The only issue is that just like its siblings, the Hunter has a heavy clutch, and this does get tiring when you invariably get stuck in a traffic jam. So the Hunter is definitely a cheerful bike to ride, and I also happen to think it looks quite nice. Now the challenge with modern retro design is that you have to sort of follow a standard silhouette, and you need the standard elements like a round headlamp, a teardrop shaped fuel tank, minimal side panels and a nicely done tail section. Now within that, I think Royal Enfield has managed to find a bit of identity without doing things that feel too weird or forced. For example, the shape of this knee recess is quite unusual and these side panels do look nice. Then there are a couple of accessories that I think look really good on this motorcycle. One of them is a flat bench seat and the other is a very neatly designed tail tidy. This is most certainly a compact bike by RE standards, and it's dimensionally smaller than the Classic in every way. But it is still a 180 kilo motorcycle, so it's not small, and it even fits a pillion rider quite comfortably. The Hunter has a nice set of proportions even though it's running on smaller 17-inch wheels, but I think the color pattern plays a significant role here. I like the dapper ash color scheme on our bike because it lets you appreciate the lines on the fuel tank better, and some of the other schemes on the Metro models have quite a bit of bold lettering that is a bit distracting to my eyes. In fact, the lower retro models have much simpler and cleaner looking paint schemes. Features wise, the Hunter keeps it simple with no fancy toys, but it's not poorly equipped either. There's a neatly designed USB charging port as standard on all the variants, and you can option the Tripper navigation display if you like. The Metro variant also gets hazard lights, and both models run a halogen headlamp that works quite well. Riding this bike in the dark was just a reminder that I'd rather have a good halogen bulb over a poor LED any day of the week. The Retro model is much simpler and it gets a number of cost-saving features including spoked wheels, slimmer tires, a rear drum brake, single-channel ABS, more basic switchgear, a simpler instrument console, a tubular rear grab handle, a halogen brake lamp, and old-school rectangular indicators. Despite its simplicity, the Retro looks quite charming, and some may actually prefer it over the Metro. Now, the question arises whether these bikes are authentic Royal Enfields. I think it will take some getting used to the combination of that slow and gentle engine in such a quick responding chassis. But beyond that, the Hunter certainly meets the expectations we have of modern day Royal Enfield. It's a well-designed, well-engineered motorcycle with a good sense of character, and it comes with plenty of customization options. These include different seats, mirrors, luggage, and more. But the real temptation for this motorcycle comes in its surprisingly aggressive pricing. With a starting price of 1.5 lakh rupees for the Retro, the Hunter 350 is priced as low as the basic previous generation Bullet model, which is soon to be replaced. The higher end Metro model with a single tone color scheme will cost you 1.64 lakhs, while the dual tone colors are priced at 1.69 lakhs. That puts the Hunter on par with the new TVS Ronin and makes it as much as 53,000 rupees less than the Honda CB350 RS. Now, Royal Enfield hasn't mentioned anything about these being introductory prices, so we don't know how long they will stay this low. But for now, the Hunter 350 is an amazing value for money deal, and it's going to give the competition a lot to think about. So to sum up, I don't think this new motorcycle is for Royal Enfield traditionalists. They will probably prefer the bigger, bulkier, slower responding feel of the Classic and the Meteor. And that's exactly the point. If you're someone who likes the idea of the new and improved Royal Enfield but doesn't really gel with any of their existing motorcycles, or if you're simply someone who thinks that these bikes are too big and intimidating, the Hunter 350 might just change your mind.